You know that moment when the ground you've been standing on your whole life suddenly cracks open beneath you? When every certainty you've ever had about yourself, your future, the guy laughing in the kitchen while he burns toast, suddenly feels like a lie you told so well, even you believed it. That's what happened the night Leo showed up at my door at 2:17 a.m. Barefoot in sweatpants, eyes swollen, voice shredded, and asked me something I never thought I'd hear from him, but I should start earlier. The apartment was a miracle in Brooklyn terms. Rent stabilized. 2 actual bedrooms with doors that closed, a fire escape you could sit on without fearing for your life, and a landlord who didn't ask questions. The only downside was the roommate I'd never met. I answered the ad on a whim after my last sublet turned into a mold-infested nightmare when I showed up for the viewing. He was already there, leaning against the kitchen counter like he owned the place. Noah Kim, 27. Graphic designer, quiet smile that tilted a little higher on the left side. He had this dark curly hair that he kept pushing out of his eyes, and a habit of wearing soft, faded band tees that clung to his shoulders in a way that made my pulse stutter the first time I saw him. I tried not to stare. I'd spent years perfecting the art of not staring. "Julian Hart," said, offering my hand. "Noah," he replied, grip warm and sure. His eyes were hazel in the late afternoon light coming through the window, and I remember thinking dangerously that I could probably live here. With him, no problem. We moved in 2 weeks later. Living with Noah was effortless in a way that scared me. He worked freelance, so he was almost always home, barefoot at his desk with headphones on, sketching logos or album art or whatever beautiful thing clients paid him for. I was 25, working retail at a boutique in Soho while I tried to get my photography off the ground. Coming home smelling like overpriced candles and pretension, we fell into a rhythm without trying. I made coffee strong enough to wake the dead. He left the good oat milk on the counter for me because he'd noticed I used it. He cooked on the nights I worked late, simple things. Pasta with too much garlic, grilled cheese when he was tired, and I did the dishes while we talked about everything and nothing. Music, movies, the worst customers I'd had that day. The way he laughed when I told stories, head thrown back, throat exposed, made something low in my stomach twist every single time. I started lingering in the living room when I knew he'd be there. Started wearing the tight black shirts I usually saved for going out, just because I caught him looking once. Started pretending I didn't notice how gently he asked if I was okay on the nights. I came home quiet and hollowed out from family calls. Because here was the problem. I was queer. Had been out since I was 17. Had marched in pride. Had boyfriends. Had hookups. Had my heart broken in 3 different area codes. And Noah. Noah was straight. Painfully, oblique, bare straight. I'd listened to him on the phone with women, Maya, Sarah, that one girl from Tinder whose name he never remembered, voice dropping into that warm, flirty register that made me want to slam my bedroom door and blast sad music like a teenager. I heard everything through the thin walls. Everything. I never told him I was gay. Not because I thought he'd care. Noah was the kind of guy who had a trans cousin he adored and corrected people's pronouns without making it weird. No, I didn't tell him because I was already halfway in love with him by month 4. Telling him felt like handing him a loaded gun pointed directly at my own chest. Better to stay the safe, funny, platonic roommate. Better to pretend I didn't catalog. The way his mouth curved when he said my name. Was doing fine lying. To myself had become a survival skill until the night in November when the lying stopped working for both of us. I was half asleep when the knock came, soft, then frantic. "Jules." His voice cracked on my name. "Can I come in?" I opened the door and forgot how to breathe. Noah stood there in low-slung gray sweatpants and nothing else. Hair a mess, eyes red and glassy, cheeks blotchy like he'd been crying for hours. I had never seen him undone. Not once. "What's wrong?" I asked, stepping aside automatically. He walked in like he was walking into a church, reverent and terrified. Sat on the edge of my bed like he was afraid it might disappear. I sat beside him, careful, always so careful. "Talk to me," I said. He stared at his hands. They were shaking. "Maya ended it tonight," he said finally, voice raw. She said I was somewhere else even when I was with her, that I never let her in, that I was in love with someone I wouldn't even admit to myself. I waited. He laughed, this broken sound that tore me open. She's not wrong, he whispered. I've been lying. For years, to her, to every girl I've ever dated, to my parents, to you. He looked up then, and his eyes were drowning. Julian, I think I'm gay. Air left my lungs. He kept going, words tumbling out like he'd been holding them in so long they hurt. I've known since I was a kid. I think there were these moments. Crushes I pretended weren't crushes. Thoughts I buried so deep, I convinced myself they were nothing. I dated girls because that's what you do. Because it was easier. Because I thought if I just tried hard enough, I could be what everyone wanted me to be. But I couldn't. I can't. A tear slid down his cheek. He didn't wipe it away. When I was with Maya, I'd close my eyes and pretend it was. He stopped, swallowed. Someone else. My heart was a violent thing in my chest. Noah, I said softly. I'm 27 years old, he said. Voice cracking again, and I'm just now saying this out loud. I feel like an idiot. Like my whole life has been this performance, and I'm only now dropping the mask, and I don't even know who I am underneath it. You're still you, I said. My hand found his shoulder without permission. He was trembling. There's nothing wrong with you. He looked at me then, really looked, and something in his face shattered open. Are you? He asked, barely breathing. I thought, I wasn't sure, but I hoped. Are you gay? The question hung between us like a live wire. Yes, I said. My voice didn't shake. I am. Relief flooded his face so completely it looked like pain. You never told me, he said, not accusing, just wondering. I didn't want it to be weird, I admitted. Didn't want you to think every time I looked at you, it meant something. Wasn't supposed to. He laughed, wet and disbelieving. God, we're idiots. Silence stretched, thick and electric, then quieter. I don't know how to do this, Jules. I've never even kissed a guy. I've spent my whole life running from this part of myself, and now I'm standing still, and I'm terrified, and I don't know where to start. He turned to me, eyes pleading. Will you help me? He asked. I trust you. I need someone who gets it. I need you. Every alarm bell in my head went off at once. This was a disaster waiting to happen. Helping the straight not straight roommate I'd been in love with for months explore his newly admitted sexuality? I was volunteering to be collateral damage, but he was looking at me like I was the only safe harbor in a storm. And I had never been able to deny him anything. Okay, I said. My voice sounded far away. I'll help you. The gratitude that broke across his face nearly undid me. Thank you, he whispered. I swear I won't make it weird. I can't do this alone. He hugged me then, sudden and fierce, arms tight around my back, face buried in my shoulder. I froze for half a second before my arms came up around him. He smelled like laundry detergent, and the mint toothpaste he used, and something that was just Noah. And I wanted to die right there because it hurt so perfectly. When he pulled back, his eyes were still wet. But he was smiling, small, real. I should let you sleep, he said. He left, closing the door softly behind him. I didn't sleep. The next morning, he was in the kitchen making coffee like nothing had happened, except everything had. When he saw me, his whole face softened. Morning, he said, shy. Morning. I poured coffee, added oat milk. My hands were steady. His weren't. So, he said after a minute, leaning against the counter, where do we start? I almost laughed, almost cried. We can talk, I said, whenever you want. About anything. We spent the whole weekend talking. He wanted to know everything. When I knew how I told my parents what my first kiss with a guy was like, how I learned to live without shame. I told him about being 15 and realizing why I couldn't stop staring at the senior lacrosse captain. About coming out to my sister in the car outside Dairy Queen and crying so hard I threw up. About my first boyfriend in college who held my hand in public and made the world feel possible. Until he didn't know it, listened like he was memorizing scripture at one point, late on Sunday night. He looked at me across the couch and said, very quietly, "I think I've been in love with you for months and didn't know what to call it." I stopped breathing. He looked as shocked as I felt, like the words had slipped out without permission. "I don't expect anything," he added quickly. "I know this is a lot. I know you didn't sign up to be my whatever this is." I just needed to say it out loud. Finally, I stared at him. The silence stretched so long, I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. Then I said, voice rough, "You have no idea how long I've been waiting for you to say that." He laughed. This broken, beautiful sound, and then he was crossing the space between us, hesitant. Asking with his eyes, I met him halfway, when we kissed. It was slow and careful, and tasted like coffee and salt and every moment I'd spent pretending I didn't want this. His hands shook against my face. Mine didn't. After foreheads pressed together, breathing the same air, he whispered, "So that's what it's supposed to feel like." He smiled so wide it hurt. "Yeah," I said. "That's what it's supposed to feel like." We still had a long way to go. He still had coming out conversations ahead of him that would be brutal. I still had to figure out how not to fall apart every time he looked at me like I'd hung the moon. But for the first time in a year, I wasn't pretending anymore, and neither was he. Alex had been my roommate for 14 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days when he told me he thought he might be gay. We were on the fire escape of our 4th-floor walk-up in Bushwick, legs dangling over the side, sharing a warm beer because the fridge had died again. The August night smelled like hot asphalt and someone's overambitious barbecue. Manhattan glittered across the river, like it was personally offended we weren't over there spending money. "I've never said it out loud before," he said, voice low, almost lost under the distant salsa leaking from Mrs. Delgado's window. "Not to anyone." I took a slow sip so I wouldn't have to answer right away. Alex Chen, software engineer by day, Secret Dungeons & Dragons dungeon master by night. The guy who alphabetized our spice rack and still blushed when I walked to the bathroom in just boxer briefs. I've been half in love with him for at least 10 of those 14 months. "That's okay," I said finally. "Takes as long as it takes." He nodded, eyes fixed on a neon bodega sign. "I'm 31, Leo. 31. Shouldn't I have figured this out already? Some people know at 4. Some people know at 90. No rule book." He laughed, but it cracked in the middle. "I feel like I've been living in a house where all the lights were off and someone just flipped the breaker. Everything looks different." I wanted to ask if I looked different too. Instead, I nudged his shoulder with mine. "Welcome to the rest of your life, man." He came out to his older sister May 1st, over FaceTime from the kitchen table. I pretended to read on the couch but watched his face the whole time, the way it went slack with relief when she said, "Alex, I love you, you big dummy. Of course I knew," and then crumpled when she started crying happy tears. He hung up and stood there for a long time, hands braced on the counter, shoulders shaking. I got up, walked over, and wrapped my arms around him from behind without asking. He leaned back into me, like he'd been waiting years to do. The next few months were a masterclass in falling. In love with someone who still flinches when another man's hand brushes his in a crowded bar. He started going to queer, climbing nights at the gym in Williamsburg, came home smelling like chalk and nervous sweat, eyes bright, telling me about this guy Jonah who could campus the 5.13 without feet, or that trans woman Sam who'd crushed everyone at arm wrestling. He talked about them the way people talk about fireworks, beautiful, loud, impossible to ignore, and every night he asked me questions. What was it like, your first pride? How did you know you were into guys and not just curious? Do you think some people are just late bloomers, or are they lying to themselves the whole time? I answered everyone, voice steady, his heart rioting. Then one Thursday in October, he came home early, dropped his backpack and said, "I tried to kiss someone tonight." The room tilted. "Yeah, this guy, Nico, really cool artist. Tattoos everywhere." We were talking by the bouldering cave, and it felt right, so I leaned in. He rubbed the back of his neck. He turned his head. I got his cheek. Then he laughed. Not mean, just awkward, and said he had a boyfriend. I wanted to die. I swallowed the jealousy clawing up my throat. That happens. First attempts are rarely cinematic. Felt like such a fucking idiot. Like I'd forgotten how to be a person. You didn't forget, I said. You're learning a new dialect. He looked at me then, something fragile flickering behind his eyes. Leo, would you show me? Just once. So I know what I'm doing wrong. My pulse filled the apartment. Show you how to kiss a guy. Properly. Not like a date or anything. Just education, he tried for a laugh. It came out strangled. Considerate roommate community service. Every alarm bell I owned went off. I should say no. Should remind him that I've wanted him since the day he helped me carry my mattress up for flights of stairs and apologize for breathing too loud. Should protect what was left of my heart. Instead, I heard myself say, okay, just once. He exhaled like he'd been underwater for years. We moved to the couch because the kitchen felt too bright, too real. He sat first, hands on his thighs, knuckles white. I sat beside him, close enough that our knees touched. The city hummed outside, indifferent. Relax, I said, even though my own heart was trying to punch through my ribs. It's just me. The understatement of the decade. I lifted my hands slowly, giving him every chance to bolt, and cupped the side of his face. His skin was warm, faint stubble scratching my palm. His eyes searched mine wide, terrified, hopeful. Breathe, I whispered. He did, shaky. I leaned in. The first press of lips was featherlight, barely contact. He froze. Then his mouth softened, moved experimentally against mine. I kept it gentle, close-mouthed, letting him set the pace. His hand came up to grip my wrist, not pushing away, just anchoring. When I pulled back an inch, his eyes stayed shut for a long second. When they opened, they were glassy. Was that okay? He asked, voice rough. Yeah, I managed. That was perfect. He touched his bottom lip like he was checking it was still there. It felt different. Good, different. I stood up too fast. Practice makes perfect. You're all set. I fled to my room, shut the door, and slid down it until I was sitting on the floor. Head in my hands. That should have been the end of it. It was in. After that night, the apartment shrank. Every room was charged with static. He sat closer on the couch. Let his head rest on my shoulder during movies. Asked if he could try again just to compare 2 nights later. And then again the week after that, each kiss longer, deeper, hungrier, never more than kissing. Never acknowledgement in daylight. He still went out, still met guys. Still came home and reported no spark with this confused wonder. Like his body had forgotten how chemistry worked. One night in December, we were decorating the saddest little Christmas tree Target could sell us. Fairy lights tangled, Mariah Carey on the speaker, cheap tinsel everywhere. He hung a glittery star and turned to me. I think I might be demisexual or something. I only feel it when I already care about the person. My hand stilled on the string of lights. That's a real thing. Doesn't make you broken. He stepped closer, snow falling outside the window behind him like a movie. Leo, yeah. I think I've been waiting for the right person this whole time and pretending I hadn't found him yet. The ornament slipped from my fingers and shattered on the hardwood. He flinched. Shit, I'm sorry. Forget Alex. My voice cracked on his name. Look at me, he did, terrified. I've been in love with you for over a year, I said. Every time you kissed me and then acted like it was just practice, it carved another piece out of me. If this is still an experiment for you, I can't do it anymore. His eyes filled. It's not an experiment. It never was. I was just scared you didn't want me back? Scared I'd ruin the best thing in my life. I laughed, wet and disbelieving. You absolute idiot. Then I kissed him. Not gentle. Not educational. A year's worth of wanting in one collision of mouths, hands fisting in his hoodie. His back hitting the wall hard enough to rattle the framed map of Middle-earth. He kissed back like a drowning man finally breaking the surface, desperate, grateful. Home. When we pulled apart, foreheads pressed together, breathing ragged, he whispered, "So, not just practice?" "Never just practice," I said against his mouth. He smiled, shaky and luminous. "Good, because I'm really, really bad at lying to you." Outside, the first snow kept falling, soft and quiet, covering the city in a hush that felt like permission. Inside, we kissed again, slower this time, learning the new dialect together. No more pretending. No more lights off. Just us, finally seeing clearly. They had been roommates for 14 months, which was long enough for Alex to know that Julian always left exactly one clean coffee mug in the drying rack, never two. And long enough for Julian to know that Alex hummed old Radiohead songs when he thought no one was listening. They shared a narrow two-bedroom in Brooklyn, the kind with radiators that clanked like they were personally offended by winter, and a kitchen so small that if both of them reached for the fridge at the same time, someone had to surrender. Alex had been out since college. Julian had dated exactly 3 women in the entire time Alex had known him, all of them polite, serious, short-lived relationships that ended with handshakes and we want different things. Julian never seemed heartbroken. He seemed relieved. Then came the night Julian knocked on Alex's bedroom door at 2:17 a.m. Barefoot, wearing the old Columbia Law hoodie he'd stolen from his ex. Eyes red like he'd been crying or staring at a screen too long, or both. "I need to tell you something," he said, voice hoarse. "Can I come in?" Alex sat up in bed, heart already doing stupid, hopeful things. "Yeah, of course." Julian closed the door behind him and leaned against it like the hallway might attack him. "I think I'm gay," he said it fast, like ripping off a bandage. "I mean, I know I am. I've known for a while. I didn't know how to say it out loud until tonight." Alex's mouth went dry. "Okay," he said carefully. "Thank you for trusting me with that." Julian laughed, a cracked sound. "I've been practicing saying it in the mirror for 3 weeks. I still sound like an idiot. You don't." Alex patted the bed beside him. "Come here." Julian hesitated, then crossed the room and sat, leaving a careful foot of space between them. "I kept thinking, what if I say it and everything changes? What if I lose you?" "You won't lose me," Alex said, and meant it so violently it scared him. They didn't kiss that night. Julian cried a little, quietly, shoulders shaking. Alex wrapped an arm around him and led him. When Julian finally fell asleep, still half upright against the headboard, Alex stayed awake until dawn, listening to him breathe. The next few weeks were careful, deliberate. Julian came out to his sister over FaceTime and threw up afterward. He told his parents in a letter because he said if he tried in person, he'd chicken out. They responded with a stilted but loving email and a promise to learn more. Julian printed it out and taped it to the fridge like it was a college acceptance letter. Alex was proud of him. Alex was also going slowly insane because Julian started asking questions. "What was it like for you? The first time you kissed a guy? How did you know it wasn't just a phase? Do you think I'm too old to be this clueless?" And every time Julian leaned in a little too close, every time his hand lingered on Alex's arm when he laughed, Alex felt the ground tilt under him. One night they were on the couch watching the Great British Bake Off, sharing a bowl of popcorn. When Julian said, very casually, "Would you kiss me?" Alex froze. On screen, someone's souffle was collapsing in tragic slow motion. Julian turned to him, expression unreadable. "Not like a real kiss. Just practice. So I know what it feels like. With someone I trust." Alex's heart was a drumline in his throat. "Jules, I know it's weird." "Forget I know," Alex said quickly. "It's not weird. Are you sure?" Julian nodded. "I trust you more than anyone on earth. And I'm tired of wondering." So Alex leaned in, slowly giving Julian every chance to change his mind. He didn't. The kiss was soft, almost chaste. Julian's lips were warm and a little salty from the popcorn. He made a tiny, surprised sound, then pressed closer, hand coming up to rest against Alex's jaw. When they pulled apart, Julian's eyes were wide, pupils blown. "Okay," he whispered. "Wow, okay." Alex tried to laugh, but it came out shaky. Yeah. Yeah. Julian touched his own mouth like he was checking it was still there. That was not what I expected. Good not or bad not. Julian met his eyes. Good. Really good. They didn't talk about it the next day, or the day after that. They moved around each other like two magnets that hadn't decided which. Poles were facing out. Then came the second kiss. It was a Thursday, raining hard enough to rattle the windows. Julian had spent the evening at a queer young professionals meet in Manhattan. He came home soaked, hair dripping, cheeks flush with cold and something else. He found Alex in the kitchen making tea. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Julian said without greeting. The kiss. All night. Every time someone talked to me, I was thinking about your mouth. Alex set the kettle down harder than necessary. Julian, I'm not asking for practice this time. Julian stepped closer, water dripping from his hair onto the tile. I want to kiss you because I want to kiss you. Because it's you. Alex should have said no. Should have been sensible. Instead, he whispered, then do it. Julian kissed him like a man drowning. Hands in Alex's hair, body pressing him back against the counter. Alex kissed back just as desperately, months of want surging up all at once. The kettle screamed behind them, and neither moved to turn it off. They stumbled down the hallway to Alex's room, shedding wet clothes, laughing breathlessly when Julian's sock caught on the doorframe. In bed, Julian was hesitant again, reverent. Alex took his time, mapping every inch of new territory with lips and hands until Julian was trembling, saying his name like a prayer after Julian lay with his head on Alex's chest, tracing idle patterns over his heart. I'm scared, he admitted quietly. Me too, Alex said. That I'll mess this up. That I'm too late. That you've been waiting and I'm still half a mess. Alex pressed a kiss to his hair. You're not a mess. You're just arriving, and I'm not going anywhere. Julian was quiet for a long time. Then, stay with me tonight. They fell asleep tangled together, rain still tapping at the windows like it approved. The next morning, Julian had to leave early for a deposition. He kissed Alex goodbye at the door, soft and lingering, then grinned. I'm going to be useless in court today. All I'll be thinking about is coming home to you. He was true to his word. That night, he came through the door with takeout from their favorite Thai place and a look in his eyes that made Alex's knees weak. They didn't make it to the bedroom this time, but the fear lingered. A week later, Julian came home from another meet, quieter than usual. There's this guy, he said, sitting on the couch, not quite looking at Alex. Elliot. He's nice funny. Asked me to get coffee tomorrow. Alex felt something crack open inside his chest. Do you want to go? Julian picked at a thread on his jeans. I don't know. I feel like I should. Like I need to know if what I feel for you is real, or if it's just because you were the first. The words were gentle, but they cut deep. Alex forced a smile that hurt. Then go. You should know. Julian looked up, eyes stricken. I don't want to hurt you. You won't. Alex lied. We're friends first, right? Always. Julian went on the coffee date. Alex spent the evening pretending to read case law while refreshing Grindr like a masochist. Then, hating himself for it, Julian came home just after 10. He looked exhausted. How was it? Alex asked, proud of how steady his voice was. Good, Julian said. He's great. We talked for 3 hours. He kissed me goodnight. Alex's heart stopped, and Julian crossed the room in 3 strides and dropped to his knees in front of where Alex sat on the couch. He took Alex's hands in his. It was nice, he said, but it wasn't you. It wasn't even close. Alex stared at him. I sat there the whole time wishing it was your laugh I was hearing, your hand I was holding. When he kissed me, I kept thinking this is wrong. This mouth isn't home. Julian's voice cracked. I'm in love with you, Alex, not because you were the first, because you're the only one I want. The only one I've ever wanted. I was just too scared to admit it. Alex's eyes filled. You mean that I've never meant anything more? Julian leaned up, pressing their foreheads together. I'm sorry it took me so long. I'm sorry I made you doubt, but I'm here now. If you'll still have me." Alex kissed him before he finished the sentence. Kissed him until they were breathless and laughing and crying all at once. Later, tangled in sheets that smelled like both of them, Julian whispered against Alex's neck, "I used to think coming out would be the hardest thing I ever did. Turns out asking you to love me back was harder, and the best thing I've ever done." Alex held him tighter. "You never had to ask," he said. "I've been yours for 14 months and counting." Outside, the radiator clanked its grumpy approval, and somewhere in the kitchen, there was exactly one clean coffee mug waiting for morning. My name is Leo Castellanos, and the night my best friend and roommate saved my life. He started by knocking on my bedroom door at 2:17 a.m., holding a bottle of tequila and looking like the world had just cracked open inside his chest. "Leo," Aiden whispered through the wood, voice shaking. I need help. Can I come in?" I opened the door, still half asleep, hair sticking up, wearing nothing but boxer briefs in confusion. Aiden Kim stood in the hallway of our cramped Brooklyn walk-up, eyes red, cheeks blotched from crying. He'd been out on what was supposed to be a third date with some girl named Rachel from his grad school cohort. Instead, he was here, clutching that bottle like it was the only thing keeping him upright. I stepped aside. "Come in, man. Talk to me." He sat on the edge of my bed, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. The words came out halting, terrified, each one costing him something. "I think I'm gay, Leo. I think I've always been gay. And tonight, I kissed a guy in the bathroom of some bar in Bushwick, and I liked it, and I panicked, and I ran, and I don't know what to do with this." The air left my lungs. Not because I was shocked that Aiden might be gay. I'd wondered for years. I was shocked because I'd been in love with him for almost as long, and I'd buried it so deep I'd convinced myself it was never going to surface. I sat down beside him, close enough that our shoulders touched. "Okay," I said softly. "First, breathe. Second, you're not broken. Third, you're safe here always." He looked at me then, eyes glassy, terrified, searching. "You're not freaked out?" I laughed, but it came out wet. "Aiden, I've been out since I was 17. You think anything you say right now could freak me out?" Relief broke across his face like sunrise, and then he was crying again. Harder this time, leaning into me until his head rested against my collarbone. I wrapped my arms around him and held on while he shook apart and started putting himself back together. That was the beginning. We lived together already. Aiden finishing his PhD in mechanical engineering at NYU, me freelancing as a graphic designer while trying to grow my little studio. We'd been roommates for 2 years, best friends for 4. I knew how he took his coffee, oat milk, 2 sugars, how he hummed when he was concentrating, how he always left one sock inside out in the laundry. I also knew I was never going to be more than the gay best friend who helped him pick out cologne and watched him date women who never quite fit. Until that night. The weeks after his confession were careful, gentle. I became his soft place to land. We went to therapy together, his first time ever seeing a queer-affirming counselor. I took him to his first night at the Ritz, stood beside him while he watched men dance with men, and realized the world wasn't going to end. I introduced him to my friends, let him borrow my courage when his own ran out, and every night he ended up in my bed not for sex. Not yet. Just to be held. He'd crawl in after nightmares or panic attacks, curl against my back, and whisper, "Is this okay?" I'd pull him closer and answer, "More than okay," while my heart tried to beat itself to death. He kissed me first on a rainy Thursday in October. We were on the couch, watching old episodes of Avatar, his comfort show. My secret pleasure. He was quiet, fidgety. Then suddenly he turned, cupped my face, and kissed me soft, hesitant. Tasting like peppermint tea and fear, I froze for half a second, terrified I was dreaming. Then I kissed him back, slow and reverent, like I'd been waiting my whole life for permission. When we pulled apart, his eyes were wide. That was, "Wow, yeah," I managed. "Wow." He bit his lip. "Can we do it again? just to make sure. We made sure, approximately 7 more times that night. No clothes came off. We just kissed until our mouths were swollen and the credits rolled unnoticed. The next morning, he looked panicked again. Leo, I don't want to ruin us. What if I'm bad at this? What if I hurt you? I took his hands. Then we figure it out together. I'm not going anywhere. We decided to date quietly at first. Just us. Learning what it felt like to hold hands on the subway, to make out in the kitchen while the pasta boiled over, to fall asleep tangled together and wake up smiling. He came out to his parents over Thanksgiving. I waited in the car outside their house in Jersey, engine running, ready to drive him away if it went badly. It didn't go great. His dad barely spoke. His mom cried, but they didn't kick him out. Progress, not perfection. He came out to his little brother Mateo over FaceTime, pulling me into frame the way kids show off a new toy. Mateo, this is Leo, my boyfriend. Mateo, all of 14, just shrugged and said, Cool. Does this mean I finally get your room when you move out? Aiden laughed so hard he cried. My family had loved Aiden for years. The boyfriend label only made my abuela start knitting him a scarf in Panthers colors because that boy is too skinny. Leonardo feed him. There were growing pains. Of course, the first fight came when Aiden went to his first Pride alone. I'd had a migraine. He came home at 4 a.m., drunk on vodka and wonder, lipstick on his neck that wasn't mine. Nothing had happened. He swore he'd been kissed by a drag queen named Champagne Showers, but the image burned itself into my brain. I slept on the couch that night. Slept on the floor next to it, holding my hand across the gap until morning. We learned boundaries. We learned to text. We learned that jealousy lives loudest in the places we feel most insecure, and that love means talking about it anyway. Seasons changed. We got better at being us. One spring Saturday, he planned an entire day. Bagels from our favorite spot in Williamsburg, the ferry to Governor's Island. A picnic where he nervously produced a key. I gave notice on my own bedroom, he said, cheeks pink. I don't want to keep pretending I sleep anywhere but with you. I want this to be our apartment. Our life. I kissed him so hard we toppled over into the grass. Then came the job offered Google, Mountain View, principal engineer track. The kind of role he'd been working toward since undergrad. Start date. 8 weeks. He told me over takeout pad thai, watching my face fall. I want you to come with me, he said quietly. I can't do this without you, Leo. I don't want to. New York was my home, my clients, my community, my family 20 minutes away on the 7 train. California was 3,000 miles of unknown. We fought ugly words. Fear dressed up as practicality. He accused me of not believing in us. I accused him of asking me to shrink my life to fit inside his. He slept at a hotel for 2 nights. On the 3rd night he came, home at 2 a.m. Again and found me on the fire escape, city lights flickering below, crying into a bowl of melted ice cream. I'm scared, I admitted when he sat beside me. I'm scared if I say no I lose you, and I'm scared if I say yes I lose me. He rested his head on my shoulder. Then let's not lose either. Come with me, but keep your studio. We'll fly back every few months. We'll make it work because we're good at making it work. I looked at him, this man who 9 months earlier hadn't even admitted to himself who he was, and realized he was the bravest person I knew. Okay, I whispered. Let's go west. We sold most of our furniture, shipped what mattered, cried saying goodbye to our favorite bodega cat. My mom packed enough pastelas to feed the entire Bay Area. Aiden's mom hugged me for the first time ever and whispered, take care of my boy. San Francisco welcomed us with fog and hills that murdered our calves. Our apartment in Noa Valley was tiny, overpriced, and perfect. Aiden thrived at work, rebuilt my studio remotely, took on West Coast clients, learned to love oat milk lattes and ocean cliffs. Some nights I missed the subway so much it ached. Some mornings he woke up gasping from dreams that his parents had disowned him. We held each other through all of it. 9 months after the move on a January morning so clear the Golden Gate, looked close enough to touch it on, dragged me out of bed before sunrise. Trust me, he said, eyes dancing. He drove us to Land's End. hiked me to a lookout where the Pacific crashed silver and wild below. Then he dropped to one knee in the salt wind, ring box trembling in his hand. "Leo Castellanos," he started, voice cracking. "2 years ago I was drowning in a lie I didn't even know how to name. You threw me a rope made of patience and honesty, and the kind of love that doesn't demand anything back. You taught me who I am. How you moved across the country because you believed in us before I was brave enough to. I want to spend the rest of my life proving I'm worth that faith." He opened the box, a simple brushed platinum band with a thin line of blue sapphire inside, like the color of New York subway tiles. "Will you marry me?" Tackled him into the dirt before he finished the sentence. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." We got married the following spring in a little garden in Golden Gate Park under cherry blossoms and California sun. My abuela flew in and danced with Aiden's mom to Bad Bunny. Mateo was our ring bearer and spent the reception trying to convince the DJ to play Fortnite dances. When it was time for vows, Aiden went first. "Leo, you once asked me if I could go back, would I change anything about how we happened? And I said no, because every hard moment brought me here. But if I could change one thing, I'd have kissed you sooner. I'd have saved us both months of pretending. Thank you for waiting anyway." I barely got through mine without ugly Dash crying that night in our apartment, our real apartment. With both our names on the lease and framed photos from 2 coasts. On the walls we lay tangled together, wedding rings catching the moonlight. "We did it," he whispered. "We actually did it." "We're just getting started," I said. He smiled against my neck. "Good, because I plan on loving you for the next 80 years or so. Sometimes people ask how you know when it's real. I tell them it's not one grand moment, it's the quiet ones. The 2 a.m. confessions, the fights you bother to fix, the moving trucks and new area codes and choosing each other when it's hard. It starts with someone brave enough to say, 'I need help,' and someone else brave enough to answer, 'I'm here. We'll figure it out together.' That's how you build a life. That's how you come home."